All right, so now we have come to one of the biggest questions in jazz education, and that's about swinging. I hope you notice that this video isn't called How to Swing, but instead How to Learn How to Swing. That's because I can't teach you how to swing. I can give you pointers and discuss some elements thereof, but I can't actually tell you, you will swing if you play your notes X distance apart with Y amount of accenting or anything like that. So let me tell you how I learned how to swing. I had just gotten accepted to a performing arts high school, and they set me up with the guy who's taught nearly every great jazz guitar player in the city. And I went to my first lesson, played a little bit, and it sounded like this. And he said, "That is not jazz." So how did he fix this? Well, he gave me a copy of the Incredible Jazz Guitar by Wes Montgomery and said, transcribe the solo in Aerogen, match the performance as best you can. Now, obviously, I didn't learn how to swing in a week, and he gave me feedback and guided me through the process. But that's what I want to talk about today. How do we work on it, and what does the process look like? Well, in my video about transcribing, I mentioned that there are two sides of the coin. There's all the stuff going on melodically and harmonically, that is what the notes are. And then there's the stuff, the physical performance of those notes, how the notes are played. That is what we're going to talk about today. So when it comes to this aspect, there are two main subcategories of performance: the distance between the notes and the accenting. Imagine that for a pair of eighth notes, we have an imaginary line segment representing how swung something can be. At one end is entirely straight, that is equal distance between the notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. At the other end would be entirely swung, according to the academic definition of quarter note triplet, eighth note triplet, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, we know from listening to our favorite players that neither of those are swinging in the true musical sense of the word. So what if truly swinging eighths exists somewhere in the middle of that line? Not entirely straight, not entirely swung. An interesting thought. Let's table this for a second and come back to it. So the other element I mentioned is accenting. Accenting is a sliding scale too, in that it's not binary. It's not like things are 100% accented or not accented at all. They're like I'm playing with an accent or without an accent. There's a degree of fluidity here. This contributes to swing feel, but it also goes a long way to make us sound less robotic. Some of you may be familiar with quantizing things in the digital music making world. Things sound more human when there are inconsistencies, right? So in my mind, there's the option of which notes to accent, the combination of downbeats or upbeats, and there's the option of dynamic range in accenting. So if I have a line like this, Charlie Parker's opening lick on Tiny's tempo, it's not like all those accents are created equal, right? And it's not like I'm consistently, like the accents are consistently on one type of beat, downbeats or upbeats, right? It's a combination of that. Make sense? So what do we do with this information? Well, you can think of swinging as the interaction between these elements. It is some transient combination of the distance between the notes and the accentuation of those notes. But how do we find out what that is? The best way to do this is to transcribe a chorus of something that is, in your opinion, ridiculously swinging. And this time, don't worry too much about the analysis of the notes. Instead, we're going to pay attention to the two elements: the distance, how straight or swung, and the accenting. Now, I feel like it's important to urge you to avoid trying to quantify this information. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's not so scientific in that it's 65% swung or any specific number. You're not going to figure out the magic number and be golden. Instead, focus on matching the feel when you're playing along with the recording, and please slow it down to really lock it in. At first, it's going to feel weird because you want it to be entirely straight or swung, because that's what we're used to, and it's neither. Playing in between those two feels kind of wrong. It's disorienting and feels like you're trying to hit a constantly moving target. But stick with it, and it'll become more clear as you do it a lot. You'll need to do a handful of solos to really get it into your ear and hands. The same advice applies to the accenting. So observe where players tend to place accents, but know that it's not, I will swing if I accent my upbeats at 70% loudness or whatever. It's something that you have to hear and feel, and the only way to get there is by doing it a lot. I also encourage you to find a teacher who can help you dial it in, because it took me more than a few lessons of my teacher saying, no, it's still too bouncy, or that's too straight. It's just part of the process. But if you want to play jazz, it's not optional. All right, do the thing.